rather charming fellow.
Yeah, he's been writing for ages. Many people, if they look back at CNET from back in the 90s, he used to write some really good articles. I didn't even realize this until some years ago when I was trying to see his portfolio work, and yeah, he's been around the business for a long time. In fact, as a journalist, but he's writes a lot about Apple versus Microsoft, playing the two teams, the fans from both camps, and trying to get them to comment. In Beta News, which is I find to be a very Microsoft tilted website in general, especially the writers they have there. But he's basically moved there. As you say, he left Microsoft Watch in its state where I think it's safe to say the site is pretty much dead as a going site. Whereas the site called Grokklaw, which we spoke about before, it's doing pretty well in the sense that Pamela didn't quite leave the site. She's posting more than ever before in Newspics, and Mark just carries on with posts in the main blog. He doesn't get many comments, but he still talks about the issues, about patents, which is very useful to me. I'm very happy about that because Pamela is just producing lots of output, and Mark is making some very good analysis with documents of cases that I follow, especially to do with patents. So he doesn't look so much at, cases like the Apple things and the Sony and all kinds of cases which weren't so close to my heart. But so that site is very useful too. But anyway, going back to Joe, what Joe has been doing recently, despite his, shall we say, the focus on Apple, especially in recent years, he wrote about the Chrome OS, or the Chrome, what's it called, Chromebooks, I suppose it's called Chromebooks, what Google is trying to sell you is a computer that's connected to the cloud and boots Chrome OS with Linux underneath and everything else. He basically made the point that if you are not capable of using this operating system, you probably live in the past, because lots of people, in fact, use some web-based applications or productivity tools, whatever. So these applications, that can be things like even very small apps or just access to, check the weather, things like that, widgets, and even the usage, even the notion of trying to launch a browser plus mail client and Office suites with spreadsheets and spreading things around between word processor and spreadsheet. I mean, people don't do it quite the same way. People also used to work with email separately from things like calendaring, or they used to work with email in a way that's not interactive, so they couldn't just send an instant message to a person or phone the person from the email client. But increasingly, with all kinds of services you have online, you can integrate all of these experiences. In fact, in your email client, you can even open a PDF, or you can open something like a presentation within the email itself, because it's essentially just another service from the same network. So all of these cases of integration, this online experience, he claims, Joe Wilcox claims, that is the type of thing any person should be adapted to by now. And if you're not used to that, you probably live in a very old modality, which you could change if you wish to. And that's good news on one hand, because it means more people can use those Linux sort of appliances from Google. But it's not exactly the vision I think promotes the control by the users and power by the users on all of the computers, because it's actually worse than proprietary in some ways. If they're going to use binaries, proprietary software that they have no physical access to, basically binaries running on like Google server somewhere, they have even less control than if they just had the binaries.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a topic that's probably one of the hot potatoes at the moment, so to speak. And I mean, it's horses for courses. I certainly use quite a few online applications, and I do store some of my data on the cloud, but it's very much on my terms and not as a result of being forced. Have you ever seen Peppermint, the Linux distribution?
I've seen screenshots.
Yeah, I mean, I covered this. I think it's about a year ago. I first started looking at it, and it's a very good distribution because it was a hybrid. It introduced you to cloud services, cloud storing your data on the cloud, but it didn't force you down any particular direction. So it's a case of you could suck it and see in respect of of cloud computing, and I think it was a very good integration of both worlds, because there is a need. I think cloud computing, storing your data on the cloud, is very good if it's used as well as, not instead of. I think people need to be a little bit cautious about throwing all their eggs into one basket, and I think that advice would go for any media that you would store your data on, or any service that you'd use. I think you need to spread your bets about a little bit is probably one of the best ways to say it. But I mean, I've certainly got a lot of confidence in some of the services that I see. I mean, Google, I've got no reason to not Google applications. I do, like I say, I do use them, Google Docs especially. And at the moment, at present time, until something happens that changes that, I certainly don't have any reason to distrust or not to use it. But I think an air of caution should be used when considering throwing all your eggs into the same basket. I don't know if you've got a view on that, Ron.
Well, since you mentioned Google Docs, they really have to improve their ODF support, because people, there used to be this really nice joke, what's his name, Carlo Piana. He was saying that that basically Google's apps was converting spreadsheets into shit. Because once he actually tries to save it as ODS, open document spreadsheets, it would kind of put the data there, but Google is not trying hard enough to in fact support standards. And that's going to be an issue if people want to really feel sure that they aren't dependent on Google. So if you're a business and you put all your documents on there, you want to be sure that if the price went up or if the server was down, you could take your documents and work with them offline.
Certainly.
Speaking of which, do you know the what's called, Microsoft actually calls it BPAWS, or I think that they actually tried to call it Office 365. I saw a few months ago. They're trying to rename that. Otherwise it's BPAWS, which, the pause is not a POS. It's not a very nice name, but they have this service that's supposed to compete with Google. I believe it means the online Office suite that they have and collaboration tools. And that's had a downtime or unavailability or slowness of like 15 or 19 hours again. And that wasn't the first time either. So that's also in the news. The fact that all the businesses which thought they could go to the so-called cloud of Microsoft, couldn't access their stuff for ages. It's getting to happen so often now.
I think it's very difficult certainly for me to measure the damage that something like that could cause, because certainly my reliance on, say, for example, Google Docs, I use it for typing up a few notes while the show's going on so I can do my show notes later on. Now, should that service be removed for 10 hours for whatever reason, it's not particularly detrimental to my life. Whereas when you have a business, I cannot appreciate what sort of loss or damage can be done to a business if it's relying on a Microsoft service that is taken down or brought down for 17 hours without experiencing it myself. So it's but like I said before, it's a case of we should be looking at the cloud as something as well as, not instead of, and data should always be stored in a location whereby if something like that did happen, you had ready access to it to prevent any damage to your business if it was that important. I would hope people don't blindly jump into the sea of cloud computing without any consideration about what happens when the service comes down.
Yeah, lots of people put their addresses on it. Actually, a lot of people lose their phone or lose something. In some cases, they lose their phone, but they have to basically have all the data stored somewhere else, and this is where the so-called cloud might be pretty useful.
Yeah.
In other cases, some people put their addresses only on the cloud, and then something gets lost, like in the case of Microsoft with Danger and the Sidekick back in 2009, I believe. And then they lose all their addresses. They have no backup, basically. And in some cases, they have a downtime of about 1 day, or in some cases, you don't even know if you'll get your data back for 3 days because they try to investigate, could we, recover some of the data or something. They don't have access to their addresses. They don't have access to their clients. They lose business. They cannot contact the client. And I've seen that before. Actually, I for one of the jobs that I do, and I have to use NetSuite, which is a hosted service. It's not my choice to use that. And what happens when this thing goes down, it causes a whole chain of things. Basically, all kinds of servers start to complain because they cannot make connections to it. You cannot communicate with people you work with. You couldn't get details of people. I try to keep local copies, for example, of certain essential numbers at times, like if I have to call someone, because I don't trust the server. I just don't trust it to be online. They will say, we've got 99.9% uptime. that's basically 1 in 1,000. So if you're going to be working on a certain day for 24 hours, divide by